step-by-step guide to kind of guide you through putting together an annual review and to make it as easy as possible and compiling all the activity from your activities within MyRIACompliance throughout the year. So the first section here is an easy way to enter the firm background, which basically is to enter the background of the firm and a summary of any changes that have occurred throughout the year. We have an example here populated for all of our users. For state-regulated firms, there's a state-regulated firm example. For those that are SEC-regulated, there's an SEC-regulated firm example that we utilize here. And so you can use that as a model to enter a basic description, but also tailor it to the specifics of your firm. And once we do that, we can mark that step complete. Pretty straightforward, but we provide some simple guidance on how to look at that. The second step is, as Oriana mentioned, around conducting a risk assessment, which again, this is something that you as a firm should be doing, throughout, independent of the annual review tool, but throughout the year. Some firms will do this towards the beginning of the year, others will stagger some of the different sections throughout the year as far as the risk assessment component. So from whenever and whatever you've done of it, as you complete that tool, the risk assessment process, the interview tool will highlight and show sections of what you have done within the risk assessment as far as low, medium, and high, and specifically will highlight out those areas that you have rated high, is what I should point out here. So if you want to go to the full risk assessment tool, you can certainly click into it from the interview tool, and it will take you to show all the different questions, low, medium, high, and you can make any entries on it. This within the interview tool is just meant to show you specifically what areas that you have rated to be high risk and how you intend to mitigate those. If you want to edit any of that information, then you can click into the risk assessment tool to make modifications around that. But here it's specifically to show the high risk items, and then with a place for you to enter any summary notes in this section as well. And those will again go into the overall summary report. So the next section then that you're prompted to do is an annual review checklist. Now we have what we call evergreen checklists that are more focused and detailed and that are found under the custom checklist section within MyRIACompliance under compliance tools. And those are still important and valuable to do throughout the year and to review. And they focus in on specific topics, but the interview checklist would be more of a summarized version of all the different areas you need to make sure that you've covered in some fashion throughout the year. So it's more condensed than all the detailed custom checklists throughout the year, but covers all the topics at least at a high level. So when we look at each of the different sections, so we can expand the different sections here. So within compliance and risk, as an example, there's a group of questions around each of these. We can go in and address, make sure we've addressed that, say yes or no. Nice thing that is built in within the tool as well is we have actually attached to each of these items, there are all the resources that are found within MyRIACompliance that relate to that particular topic, including for example, calendar items. In this case, we're still looking at the annual compliance meeting. So there's an annual compliance meeting calendar item that's referenced here, as well as the RA in a Box blog post. So those have links directly to those items. Again, with each of these items, again, we'll look at, for example, a review of the policies and procedures manual. As a part of your review, again, there's a calendar item, a checklist that relates to specifically what you need to do as a part of that review, best practices, and the risk assessment section that relates directly to that. So any of these items, if we click on it, it's going to bring us directly to that item as far as what we need to do with that item and what's already been done in relation to it. So again, go through each of these different sections. As we complete the checklist, if we complete all the items in that section, for example, you see here, books and records has the green check mark by it. That means we have completed this full section of the checklist. And so that will be noted in our summary, our annual review summary report. There's also a place then for final, notes to be included in the summary report that kind of summarizes your overall review of the in-review checklist. So once we've completed that particular step, next would be the key regulatory developments. Obviously, Oriana mentioned, a review of the key business and regulatory developments. Business developments is somewhat covered in that firm background section. The regulatory developments here, we show you relevant developments that you may want to take into account, review, and how those may have affected your policies and procedures. So for state firms or for SEC firms, they would only see the SEC relevant regulatory developments, as well as the focus on cybersecurity sections here, as far as different regulatory guidance that has come out within that. For state-regulated firms, they would also see the NASA section as far as NASA compliance deficiencies and enforcement reports. So for SEC-related firms, there's a full list of all the recent risk alerts, as well as the examination priorities list that come out the last couple of years, new SEC rules and interpretations, including the Form CRS overview for the ADV Part 3. And so, again, all the key items, as well as the SEC Division of Enforcement Reports as well. So, again, all these key items, whenever you review any of these items, you click on it, it will open up that particular blog post we have covering that and relevant to that particular source material. And then once you've clicked on it, it would mark as read within the section here. As you review those items, then you have a place to enter in any notes or summary of the review that you've had and how that may have affected your policies and procedures based on the regulatory developments that have occurred throughout the year. And again, that review will go into, as well as the check marks by the documents, the documents developments you reviewed, the summary of what you reviewed around that would come in to the report as well. From there, again, specifically, the in-review calls out that it's important, and we call it out potentially a couple of times throughout the tool, but to make sure you document your overall review of the Policies and Procedures Manual. This is a calendar item, again, within MyRIACompliance, so throughout the year you should have done this, hopefully, and documented it. If you have, then it'll show you the calendar item, when it was completed, any attachments you may have included, as well as the notes you may have made around it. If you've entered notes already as a part of your review of the Policies and Procedures Manual, you can actually pre-fill the in-review summary report with those particular items from the calendar item if you choose to, or you can add to those notes. And the same thing then would be the case for additional advisory documents. So things like the ADV Part 2 review or the ADV Part 1 status monitor review, the investment advisory contract review, advertising review, some of these other documents. Again, all these are tied to calendar items. So when we click on that particular item, it would show us, and perhaps we have recurring items, it would show us, if we had, multiple reviews within the year that were on the calendar, it shows when we completed it, what attachments we included, and we could view the actual calendar item itself. And we go back here to, for example, let's see, one of the others, status monitor, for example. So any of these different ones, we could click through the different items, view the calendar activity. If there were notes that we'd entered in, then we can, again, pre-fill our overall notes into the notes we want to go into the in-review summary, or we can add additional notes separate from that if we'd like to. And from here, again, we have our overall review, and we can enter in any kind of final notes throughout on these particular advisory documents as we go through, and those will go into the summary report. And then lastly, two more sections, the staff compliance training, which would be the overall kind of internal compliance meeting, which points out a variety of topics that could be covered, and including suggested topics. You can also add custom topics. Again, each of these will go into the final report. And then lastly, a place for final summary comments and observations. So we'll wrap up here because I know we're running out of time, but from here we generate, this is the key point, we'll generate a summary report summarizing all this. This will generate a final report based on the sections that you can generate an interim report based on the complete and incomplete sections. And from this, This is what the final report would then look like, which is to say, has the cover page, the section around the firm background, the risk assessment section we went over, basically a neatly formatted report, including the checklist components that were completed, the key regulatory developments, the P&P review, and the advisory documents review, and the compliance training and final comments. So again, all that would be then documented and would then be logged as well on the compliance log for completion or for review in subsequent years. So within the compliance log, it will show us, again, we can access the interview report and checklist from previous years if we were, once we continue to the next year.